Beyond the Wild.
Tools are getting flagged as AI,
Yeah.
especially if like you get the whatever 30 per month that you can use because then after that you get charged more.
What are you talking about?
You only get so many credits per month, and so if you use those tools you use a credit, and so if you use excess credits you get charged excess fees.
Hold on there, cowboy. What are you talking about? I have an annual subscription.
Yep.
I haven't had
And
any
your
surcharge.
annual subscription gets you so many credits to use those tools every month. And if you exceed that number of credits per month, you get charged additional fees over and above your annual subscription.
So you're telling me if you have hypothetically an elk picture with some busy white branches and you take them out, it's counting how many times you use that tool
It is.
per image or images, and you can only use it so many times
Mm-hmm.
before a surcharge.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You're going to
nuts.
be screwed in the spring, and then the rest of the year you'll be just fine. But in the spring, when you're doing all your editing,
But it's an
you're gonna
annual fee.
you're gonna go bankrupt.
It is an annual fee, and it's kind of a bunch of BS.
So how does the pricing come in then? So if it's an annual fee, I pay in August. That's when my
It's like
renewal's up.
$15 for 100 credits or something like that. So if you do 1,000 remove tools in a month, that's $150.
I have not heard any of this.
Yeah, I just made that part up. I have no idea.
Oh, guys, this is. I'm actually, I'm sitting in front of a fire, but I'm starting to break into a sweat. It's like, so that's all wrong.
No, the credit thing is real, but I don't know how it works because I've never.
Oh, you
used
don't know how it computes the monetization.
Yeah,
But does it automatically start? Doesn't it say, hey, if that's the case, you've used your credits now?
I think so, but I
would
don't.
warn you.
Yeah, I need to do some more research on that. It would be good to have somebody on from Adobe.
Yeah, because
And
it'd be like old cell
I'm
phones.
glad, JG. Please make that a short.
Well, think about it. The cell phone companies used to soak people if you had so many long distance
Yeah.
minutes or whatever a month. They didn't tell you went over.
Right.
Big. And eventually they did, right? And then now it's unlimited. It's fine. But if the software started doing that and didn't warn you that you've hit your limit, I mean, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm freaking out here, Ron. Freaking out. Seriously, credits to use the tools.
Yeah, it's crazy talk.
Well, it's the next way to get more money out of your the service they're providing, right? So
So
it makes sense.
When did this happen? I've never seen this announcement. Like
when they did the beta version, right?
I think so. It's probably in the fine print, and I can't imagine they'd start charging you right until you, without a warning or something, right? I mean, it probably would pop up, and I would hope and say, "Hey,
yeah, I don't know.
Hey, bud, you just reached your limit on this, and it's going to start costing you X amount." But who knows? I don't know.
See, I thought the beta would be the most advanced version, but no, I'll switch back if that's.
It probably is.
The beta is the experimental version. That's where all the experimental tools are.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why it's learning from it. That's why
you're teaching their software
right
in the beta version.
And you're not in the regular version?
No, you're using the software that's already learned. It's been educated by your beta version.
What's this world coming to? Oh, man. All right. I'm going to go back to slides, guys. I'm doing it.
Right. I decided I'm getting out the old film camera. It's done.
Oh, you can get them for a song, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yep.
Gotta buy film, though.
I started recording a while ago, so.
Yeah. I know. Oh,
all good banter.
I figured we were just going with it.
Yeah.
But go do what you need to do there.
So now that you've all seen Mark panic and choke on his beta version,
Gosh.
welcome to Beyond the Wild. And now you guys know what happens before the cameras start rolling or recording. They're always rolling. Guys, welcome back. It hasn't been that long, actually, this time.
No, it's actually nice seeing you guys more often lately. It's
seems
even
like
if it's
we were all
virtually, even if it's virtually,
just together. We recorded a podcast yesterday with a person that was in today, and now we're recording today. We've
so wild. We recorded into the future. How cool is that?
We're getting cool.
First time. Pretty advanced here on Beyond the Wild. So I'm not sure if you guys have noticed.
Very technical.
We're pretty much cutting edge. We've been working on this portal theory, how to just step into somewhere else. And we did step into the future for about an hour and a half.
Hey, Nick, maybe next we can try the alternate dimension. I mean,
the portal thing. If you get it worked out, I've got some good. I've got some good reasons to utilize that technology, and so I need to be a lot of places at the same time.
Yeah, that'd be real handy.
So, Mark, rumor has it you got a few more listener questions. We did a listener question episode not too long ago, and we ended it after only answering a few questions, actually. And you said
6.
We were pretty much loaded back up again, loaded for bear. We had enough for probably 2 more episodes. So fire away.
Absolutely. Thank you to everybody for sending in listener questions, and keep them coming. We love to interact with all of you. This one's interesting. I came across it just recently, screenshot it. It was a DM to us on Instagram, and it's from John Ray _photography. But something on Instagram I've noticed lately, if you go into your followers, there's some that it gives you now a category. It says they're gone. They've shut down their accounts or whatever. They don't exist anymore. And I was pretty sure just this second when I was going to read it that this looked like one I saw today. And so I just did a search, and he's not there anymore, which is interesting. And hopefully, John, you're listening to the podcast and for your question, because it kind of ties into the concerns. And so this is a random one I'm just throwing in that has come in recently. Then I'll pick up on the ones that we had recorded or written down before the last podcast. But John says he's got a topic that hit his wildlife photography group this past weekend: theft of photos. He says at least 10 photographers had images stolen, re-edited, watermark removed, or cropped and posted with their watermark. I assume he means without. Side note,
with the other people's watermark.
With other people's watermark.
Yeah, that's like whoever stole. I'm assuming that what he means is whoever stole it, removed the old watermark, re-edited it, and put their watermark on it so it looked like their image.
Wow, controversial, big time. Side note, edits were so bad, not sure if they were more offended by the edits or the theft. Several of us are now contemplating whether to post on social media anymore. Thanks, and have a blessed day. Well, John, thanks for the question. It's certainly one that comes up, that subject, over the past many years, given the importance on different levels of social media. Do you guys want to say? I have my thoughts on it, but
yeah, I mean it's a dilemma, and it's why I was so slow to the party, and there really wasn't that much theft back then. But it's why I have backed off of Facebook, because Facebook made it very well known. I mean, it's not, as long as you don't alter it on Facebook, it's not even theft. And on Instagram, you can share images, but you can't alter them, which is the same on Facebook. I think One thing that I hear a lot is, they violated copyright law and this and that. Well, in the U.S., copyright law is more than just, hey, I took the picture and I put my copyright information in the camera. There are other steps that you have to take to copyright protect your images in the United States. And I hope that someday soon that changes due to intellectual property and the fact that we are online and we do have the ability to put that information in the metadata. But it's not necessarily a copyright violation per se every time. If it was, it's a $30,000 fine, and most of that comes back to you. So, hey, chase down copyright law. I know people that do chase down copyright violations and make a pretty good living with it. So it's not something that is uncommon, unfortunately, John. As far as not posting, I think that's everybody's prerogative. I don't post as much as a lot of people, but I think posting does keep you connected to a degree with a number of people and a number of resources and a number of people who may be looking for what you have. So there are some advantages to it. But I feel your pain, and I know we're all taking that risk to a degree.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I've had this conversation with some friends multiple times, and a few friends have the theory or the perspective of, I mean, if you're not going to share your work and you're not going to share your best work, then why are you even doing this? Like, the whole point is so people can enjoy it and see it, right? And that's easy to say with the caveat that people can steal it and use it, And most of the time, what I've noticed lately, especially on social media, anyways, people notify me. I mean, and hey, I'll give a quick shout out to anybody and everybody that is looking out for us, because there's lots of people that are, and they reach out all the time and say, hey, did you know this person used your photo? And, and it's mostly in a case where they're just sharing the image, right, on another page or something. And like Ron said, there's nothing illegal about that until they start doing things like cropping watermarks and not giving credit and things like that. And I've always been pretty open. I'm fine with people sharing my images as long as they don't recrop my image and they do give me credit and tag me and so on, right? That's part of the game I played when I first started growing my account. So there's benefits to that, and it gets it in front of more people's eyes. But the other side of that is I mean, I would be thinking, unless you're going to remove your images completely from the internet, meaning you don't have a web page or anything, I don't care what you're doing, your images are at risk. And I just think that's just the way it is. I mean, if you have a website, let's just be real. If you have a website and you can pull up an image to look at it to purchase, you can screenshot that image and you can take it and put it in gigapixel, and you could probably take that and print it fairly good size. I mean, we're being honest here. The technology has come a long way, and if people want to steal your stuff, it's not difficult to do it today in today's world with technology. So we have to just keep relying, I think, on the fact that most people don't want to steal your stuff, and most people are still stand-up people. And the reality is at some point, those people that are stealing your stuff to try to sell it, eventually they're going to get caught, I think. And like Ron said, I know photographers that, like Ron said, they have, lawyers on retainer that chase down copyright issues, and they make money on it, like you said. So, I just think you have to be, if it's your living, I get it. You got to be super careful. For me, it's not my living, right? It's not how I make my living. So to me, it's more fun to share my photos and see other people's work and stuff. And it's, I try to protect them, don't get me wrong, but it's not like if I lose an image that could have been made me $5,000 or whatever, it's not the end of the world for me, So, but for somebody like Mark, our full-time photographers that are making their living with this, that is a big deal. And I know Mark doesn't put, quote unquote, his best stuff out there because, there's editors that are out there too that don't want to have photos that have been all over social media and that everybody's seen already. They want fresh stuff that people haven't looked at. So that's something else to consider too, right? Do you put your best stuff on social media hoping that some editor will see it, want to use it, or do you not, and you send it to folks on the side so that it's fresh and hasn't been seen by everybody, right? I don't know. Those are just some of the thoughts that are going through my head on this. And like Ron said, he hit it perfect. It's a constant battle, and you just have to hope that people can keep looking out for you and hope that most people are going to be honest and know that the way things are, your image gets out there. And if it's popular enough, people know it, recognize it, and they're probably going to point it out for you and say, hey, using your image, So. What do you think, Mark?
Sorry, one more thing, and then before Mark fires away, but I had somebody call me here a couple years ago and said that my caribou image with Denali in the background had been stolen, and it won a prize in the National Park photography contest. And I looked, and sure enough, it was the exact image that I got. And so I looked at the name, and it was the exact guy that was standing right next to me when I got it. Barrett Hedges.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Great guy.
You were out for blood at
Good
first.
friend. I was kind of starting to get foamy at the mouth a little bit. Because it was the exact posture even that I had. And yeah, Barrett entered. One man entered, one man didn't. and Barrett won. I can't remember if he won first place or if he just placed, but yeah, congrats to Barrett.
Yeah.
Mark.
I missed you, Barrett. We used to have a lot of bump-ins in the field. It's been a while. A brother from another mother, Barrett, and hope you guys are doing well, Twyla. And
they're
Barrett,
in Yellowstone right now.
Oh, yeah, right. I saw him posting this week. It looks like he had a banner week there.
Of course he did.
So this is a heavy topic, and it's decisions. It dials back to even as far as when I started submitting slides to magazines, sending them on a courier with FedEx. An original slide. It's the only one. Most. Thankfully, actually, probably like 90% of my editors were great in handling slides, but some had come back after they were published and not looking pretty, like done, right? And that was it back in the day for slides. And the photographer who was kind of teaching me the ropes of the business side, I was a young guy in my early 20s, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And he says, well, don't do it. But then you're not selling pictures. Go and do something else. You can't sell the pictures unless you put them out there. So his response was direct. He was a retired school principal, great man, Robert McCaw, and and a great photographer, all the genres of nature photography. And it was a lesson learned in a sense that, well, if you want to do this, you've got to put it out there. People have to see it. I'd take the risk. Couldn't insure it with FedEx, right? Because then as soon as you go over the $100, you're paying more for shipping. You ship out 5 submissions a week. It's all got to be managed. So it was $100 insurance on 300 slides going out. But I wanted to be in this profession, so I took the chance and very rarely had issues. The internet's a whole different thing, and copyright, as Ron very smartly was pointing out, in the United States, you have to register the images with the Library of Congress. You can batch register them. So I have a stock agent in California that I've worked with for 15 or 20 years. All the images that they carry of mine, because they're US based, all get registered with the Library of Congress. And yes, there are more and more litigation settlements. Not that it went to litigation. Sorry, my terminology is probably wrong there. Unauthorized use settlements, because they actually, and anybody can subscribe to services when you load your images in. They're constantly tracking the internet for the service, for the images. And when they hit them, then it's reported back to whoever pays for the subscription. But the flip side of that is we live in an interconnected world where people from all countries have access to these platforms, and copyright is not subject in all countries. So there's that. And I just want to boil it down to, I do put a lot of my best stuff on social media because, as Jason smartly pointed out, it's meant to impress people. Or at least give the best I can to show, because anybody who's following, friends, family, editors, work, photo tour guests, I want them all to see what's possible in these situations. So holding back on quality doesn't serve somebody's own best purpose if they want to grow. And it's nothing to do with the algorithm. That's a whole other subject. But be noticed as a quality photographer is putting the best stuff out. I have found, it was interesting in the beginning when I first started social media, I was concerned about, if I put images on social media, would that be seen as a negative to editors? And that's never happened. In fact, I get more and more images now requested by my editors from my Instagram, because the website's there. They can go look at that. That has watermarks on it, big ugly ones. When people click on an image, you can see the image, but more often they're on social media too. And new editors find me, and publishers from countries that do honor copyright around the world find me on Instagram. So it makes sense for anybody who wants to grow photography as a business to be putting the best images out there. The ongoing debate is whether to put a watermark, and it pointed out that an image isn't supposed to be altered. Same with Facebook, where things are public domain, but it can't be altered. So if you have your watermark, whatever you choose it to be, it's there. And for me, part of the incentive for that is I try to put it in a non-obstructive way. I know every image would get more likes without a watermark. There's absolutely no question. But everybody looking at that image knows who it belongs to. And most importantly, in a business sense, clients know who they should contact for it. And so that's been important. And so it is a good tool for photographers in business for all kinds of things. You get hired for different types of jobs. It doesn't have to be publishing, based on the portfolio that you show. It's the representation now, but it is a juggling act, because the platform changes and things are vulnerable. But you can't, my philosophy personally is, I can't play the game and be involved without putting it out there. So I choose to. And there's a risk. There's some collateral damage. Images are taken. And, if it's some kid for a grade school project, I don't mind that. If it's an artist who's used it for reference and is selling the original for $5,000, I do take exception to that. But my approach is not overly heavy-handed. People probably have all kinds of different perspectives on this. I send them a notification. I send them the original image, and I say, here's what you owe, because this is what I would normally charge. And you have 48 hours to reply and pay my standard fee, or there'll be a copyright infringement. And in Canada, copyright infringement is simply declaring it's your image and copyrighted. Thankfully, it's that simple. So it can be pursued legally. But it's not something, usually they pay pretty quickly when they realize it. And not all of them. I've had a couple not realize they had to pay, and were very apologetic, very professional and nice about it. In fact, contacted other photographers whose work they had taken and paid them very promptly too. But you get all kinds of different people. It's all part of being online. So it's a choice. It's a personal choice. Everybody has different reasons for being on social media and on Instagram. I love the community. I've made so many friends that we've met in person now, and for all different, just become great interactions. And
sure.
Yeah, appreciate all the back and forth that goes on through that. So I enjoy it, but everybody has to do it for their own reasons, and mine are clear as a professional, why I do it and why I need to do it. If I don't post my best work on Instagram, then it doesn't get out there, except for like a direct contact, one at a time, sending a submission via email to editors. But this way it's out there for an editor that maybe I didn't think they were looking for a ptarmigan from Churchill,
That's
And
because they don't exist. Nobody's looking
and then
for
they
that.
saw it. They saw the real thing on on my Instagram, and then realized they needed one of those for the next issue.
You know what else that we did not touch on? And
Okay.
we talk often about people putting their images out there for free, but we didn't touch on the pages that are built on sharing other people's work.
Mm.
Not a single image taken by the person who owns the page, but hundreds of thousands of followers. And then what's funny is one time there was another page that was going about stealing people's work and altering the images, as Jason said, cropping them in, that kind of thing to get rid of the watermark. And this person had the gall to say that I don't let anybody steal any of my posts.
I saw that.
When
Yeah.
they steal everything that's on their page or share, not steal. But
Kind of incredible, isn't it?
yeah, it's pretty gutsy. It's pretty gutsy.
Well, all different kinds of people out there, right? Let's focus our energy on the good people and the positive.
There's more good ones than there are bad ones. Yeah.
I would agree. I get regular requests by artists, and they're very thoughtful and they're very, hey, they ask permission and then they ask if there's a fee associated or anything, and then they just decide, if it's something that sounds like a good, deal for them, then we work out something. But I very rarely have come across somebody that's using my image intentionally, not knowing that they should pay, right? So most people are really on the up and up, I think. So to your point, and that is where we should focus, I think. But.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I at the end of the day, it's a positive interaction for me.
We beat the crap out of that one.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So maybe that's why John's account's no longer there. But
well, that's what I was thinking.
Hopefully he's listening to this, and maybe it'll help him rethink it a little bit, or maybe that's the decision he makes, and there's nothing wrong with that too.
Good question, John.
Yeah.
Kind of that one took me back to Saturday Night Live and Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy. that one made us dig deep a little bit.
Love those. Those are so good.
We go back to Saturday Night Live a lot on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Which is good.
Some, outrageously awesome skits throughout the years. Deep Thoughts, but it was fantastic. Love those. All right, the next question should be faster, but it's a seasonal one that makes sense to address it. This is from Brian. Actually, I don't know if it's Michaelis. Anyways, it's Michaelis. Is that right?
I don't
know.
Would
make sense. Brian, I do apologize. Brian's Instagram is Brian_Michaelis, which is Michael IS_photography. And I believe he's based out of Florida, but has beautiful images of moose, elk, red foxes, and bears. Thank you for sending the question in, Brian. It is, what are some shooting tips for photographing wildlife in falling snow?
And I'm assuming heavy spring snow, because that creates even more of a challenge. You got those big flakes that your camera wants to focus on if you're using autofocus. So shoot in manual, Brian, and shoot a lot.
That's it. Mic dropped. Well, he's probably asking because what Florida had last month.
Yeah, no kidding.
That could actually be.
Never was a problem.
Could have been a problem.
That's funny.
Definitely. Yeah, autofocus and shoot a lot for sure.
I would just add, I've learned enough now that there's sometimes when there's heavy snow that there's just the right amount of snow that makes for a good image. And I've taken images in super heavy snow and they look like garbage. I've taken images in super light snow and it just doesn't have the impact. And so sometimes maybe moving closer if you can might, have less snow between you and the animal where it could work out a little bit better. Just some things to think about, right? I mean, And if you're in a situation where you can't, you can't. Hopefully you can wait out the situation and the snow lightens up a little bit or something. But yeah, sometimes for me, in my opinion, what makes a really nice image is big flakes that are falling slowly and not a ton of them at a time, right? But it doesn't always happen like that. So it's also fun to try and learn every time you go out, right? When you have the heavy snowfall, take some shots and see how they turn out and see what they look like. But yeah, that autofocus can be a pain. Even with the eye focus, it likes to grab those snowflakes when it's heavy for sure. So,
hey, on a side note, Mark, before you answer, again, sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, that's all good.
Go for it.
Brian's sweet image of the elk reflection with the aspen in the background. I love that one.
There you go. Check out Brian's Instagram. That was a great add-on, Jason. I liked about the density of the snow. Mm-hmm. And I'd said it's manual focus, as Ron said, manual focus. Yep. And shoot lots. And another reason to shoot lots is even when you have those big flakes that are spread out somewhat, every third shot, fourth shot, it's in front of the animal's eye, blocks it, right? Or that's close enough and hazes it out. So by shooting a high number, you have a better chance of having the important parts, like the eye, being snow free. But yeah, I think didn't even occur to me, but the density of snow does affect it. If it's snowing super heavily, then they don't sell as well as a good moderate. You can just tell it's, yeah.
Oh, one more trick, and it's my turn to interrupt, I guess. One thing I've learned on that too, and it helps with your focus, and it helps with the look of the image significantly when there's a lot of snowfall, is open your aperture up. Don't shoot it f4, shoot it f8 or f11 or whatever, and you'll get more snow that's falling in focus or that's not blurred out. You don't get just like those white dots that don't really look like anything, but it interferes. So that's something I've learned too over the years is in that situation, open that aperture up so you get more of that in focus. So it looks like snow, not just white blurs.
Close the aperture down.
Yeah. Sorry.
But you got a higher number. Right.
Sorry.
You're swinging through the fences. Those are both great tips.
Well, yeah, but I'm not the technical guy, obviously.
No, I didn't think about either one of those because you get that. You get this big white blob. If you have such a shallow depth of field, in or out of range becomes like a big ball on the frame, and that either crop it out or that frame's not good. So yeah, cool. All right, next question is from Jason Mirandi. I hope I pronounced that correctly again. His Instagram is hunting with a lens, hunting_with_a_lens. And Jason has an amazing variety of subjects from waterfowl, bears, sea otters, mountain goats, foxes, and raptors on his Instagram. Go check out his wonderful work. His question is, this is an interesting one. This is totally different. For each one of you, you can only shoot one animal, one species, I assume, for the rest of your life. Pick one.
First of all, this is a bullcrap question, Jim.
Yeah, amen to that. I'm not.
Nobody wants to play?
It's not a fair question. Let's just put it that way.
Well, it's not. I guess it would never happen, right? You're just kind of forcing us into a corner to pick a favorite subject.
Right.
Picking a favorite subject is different, though, because at least you still have the option.
Oh,
but if I got to pick one that I can shoot for the rest of my life, I mean, if I had to do it, which I don't, Jason, so just keep that in mind. But if I had to pick one forever and ever, I think it would have to be one that I've not photographed yet.
Oh. Interesting.
And I don't know which one that would be because
that's really not an answer.
Possibly. Ron. You know what? I can do whatever I want.
I think my answer would be waterfowl.
Oh, wow!
Because waterfowl is a little bit of a broad species, and there's lots of different types of waterfowl I could photograph, and it would keep me very busy for quite a long time trying to photograph
Well, I mean, come on. I could say ungulates too.
No, that's not the same. That's like saying you got to pick elk or deer or come on, man. So waterfowl. I'm not going to say mallards.
So you want to shoot mallards?
Is what I said. I'm not going to say mallards.
All right. Mark? Next question.
Well, what about you, Mark? Nice try, buddy.
All right. Well, I didn't want this to get out yet, but I've started this portfolio, and because of what it means to me, I would love to continue to expand it. And it's on Sasquatch.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, can you share some of the ones that you have already?
No.
No. Okay. Just making sure. Are they all blurry?
No. Well, no. That's the whole point.
That's the point. Yeah.
Talk about the camera I'm using, but so yeah, it's a tough one. It's not really fair because we all love so much. So yeah, I'm going to go just like Jason and said waterfowl, and Ron had the idea. Ungulates is a good one. That's.
How about just animals?
I couldn't do it. I couldn't just be. I'd have to be really forced. And if it was, I'd probably go back to white-tailed deer because it's the species from the very beginning that I built my career around, and I love the dynamic behaviors. They're how secretive and elusive they can be. So, but I don't want to be forced in that corner because I love so many species and so much of this planet. And again, it goes beyond photography for me. I just love seeing things. It doesn't have to be results in the picture.
Jason, that was a unique question, but don't do that garbage anymore.
Obviously, Jason.
No, I don't.
Oh. All right. Well, thank you for sending it in, Jason. You created some laughs and some back and forth here. Next question is from Peter and Jen. They are PJ Adventures in Canada on Instagram. They're in Western Canada. They have beautiful images as owls, coyotes, bears, bighorns, some wonderful silhouette images. Love those. And landscapes. Their question is, how fearful are you that your memory cards might fail, and what do you do to protect your best picks?
How fearful? I'm more fearful of a lot of things, but I have had it happen. I mean, I was filming for a TV show, and this was a long time ago. And my dog,
Starsky and Hutch,
my dog quite literally ate the SD card. I had this. So Doug Gardner had a friend, Don Vilfer. Don works for a federal agency, and he does recovery on the professional level, on the criminal level. Sent it to him, and he said,
"Whoa! Wait a minute! We're skipping a whole step here that I think we need some more details on."
No, we're not. I'm getting there. Yes, if you would just let me finish. Okay. I'm getting
all right, sorry.
Those details will bring up the fear factor.
So Don recovers files that people are trying not to make not recoverable. Okay, that's what he does for a living. And he said my dog did a better job than many, many criminals. And those files were gone. So it was an entire episode.
Oh, you didn't answer. Are you going there still?
I'm going there.
Sorry. All right. Sorry.
Can you just
all right.
Give me a break. So I have had it happen. And that was obviously totally oddball, unique circumstance. But I've also had cards that have been corrupted. I've got a full elk shoot from Colorado that is gone. And it was because it wasn't the card. It was actually the little SanDisk drive that I backed it up on. And those little SanDisk SSDs go out all the time. So I would say as a warning on those puppies, if you use those for backups, make sure you have something else. Usually I try to use an SSD and a spinning drive to
I
back
thought
up
they
in the field.
fixed that.
Well, I mean,
That's what I use. I have two
this
of 4
is
terabytes that I
several
carry.
years ago, but they still have heat issues in some of those. And anyway, I try to back it all up, and as soon as I can, back up every night, if possible, twice, um, because that is a potential problem. The other problem is memory cards are so expensive. As you get on a long trip, you may have to format a card in the field, and so uh, you need to have it backed up a couple different times. But it is a potential. It's a risk that we all take. I'm not fearful enough to tie up my camera's memory with shooting two files at the same time because it bogs things down pretty quick. You hit the buffer in a hurry if you're shooting two files, especially with the R5 Mark II, because they're larger files, or like the Z8, Z9, larger raw files. So um, it's a risk that has to be measured, but at the same time, you got to do it.
Are you done?
Did I get there?
No.
Oh,
Still didn't. Okay,
You
what?
still did not get there.
What?
So
Shoot.
I'm really curious. You said the dog ate it. I'm assuming it went into the digestive system.
No, it did not.
Oh, okay. I was waiting to see how did you
No. Chewed it up on
follow
the
the
floor.
dog around to get the card back?
Chewed it up, spit it out on the
Oh,
floor.
okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. No, it did not follow the dog.
Dang it. I was waiting for
Yeah.
a little bit.
You would. You would.
Yes, I would.
well,
funny.
Ron's dog's always been toilet trained too, so you got to watch them because they can
Right.
go to the toilet and flush.
Then you get
right?
Yeah.
waterlogged.
So,
Go ahead, Mark.
yeah, It's not something. Lots of things in life can cause problems, and never know, right? Enjoy every wonderful day while we're healthy and able to be out in nature photographing. So I'm not worried about the cards. I do. Sometimes I go a whole week is shooting. I have 512 because they have, for a couple $100, you can get 512 gigabyte cards, or I have a terabyte card that I can 2 terabytes. Sorry, I'll shoot on them sometimes for a week just because the days are so tiring and consuming, or maybe I don't have a way to back up at the end of the day, depending on how remote the trip is or what's happening. So I am a bit loose that way, in that I just let it pile up on the cards. But when I do have a chance, I do travel with my MacBook, and I download onto external hard drives as soon as it's convenient. And absolutely, two of them, and they're the same thing. For $150, you can get a 5 terabyte. It doesn't have to be an SSD. It just takes a little longer, but I'll let it go overnight. Right? I'll just dim my screen on my laptop in the cabin I'm in, let's say, and let them back up onto the cards overnight. I wake up in the morning, it's done and ready to go. But I always have two backups. But I haven't never been burned by cards, so I've been lucky that way. But anything can happen, right? On a trip, car can break down. So it's something to be aware of. And like Ron pointed out, be smart and back them up. But it's equipment we rely on, and thankfully they're mostly reliable. It hasn't been an issue. If it happened more frequently, then clearly we'd be backing up very quickly, or shooting to both cards and sacrificing the buffer. But that hasn't been necessary.
Yeah, you guys covered it very thoroughly. I don't take an SD drive. Probably unique to you too, and most people I know, and that's probably going to bite me in the butt someday. I do not take a drive into the field with me, or a laptop, generally speaking, to edit and or back up in the field. I just shoot to my SD cards, and then when I replace those, and I make sure they're in a safe place. And then when I get home, I dump all my files. I don't want to have to do it twice, I guess is my point. And I don't have a backup of my files that hasn't gone through Lightroom and been, cold. So I do that backup after I load them onto my computer and cull them, and then I back those up. So I have just a little bit different approach. So far, I've been very lucky, knock on wood. Haven't had too many issues with that, but nowadays I think most of the cards are pretty good. But one thing I'll just add that you guys didn't mention necessarily is make sure you're buying drives and cards that are warranted and that come with, the backups that you can have them recovered.
Recovery, yeah.
And that's probably just another step that you can add to, don't buy cheap cards. Don't buy cheap cards and cheap drives. There's a reason you spend more money for the ones that are guaranteed, and it's probably smart to do that. So, and you can get those at Picture Line.
Most definitely.
Picture Line will take care of you.
Yep. And they'll help you with which ones to get, which ones are warranted, all that fun stuff. So, yeah.
Colin Bigelow on Instagram. Send him a DM. Order from him, and he'll throw in, if you're looking on YouTube, he'll throw in a sticker with your hard drive from Beyond the Wild podcast. Helps us do this podcast, so thank you. Support our sponsor. Thank you, Peter and Jen. Great question. Next one is from Kerry Jones Photography, KERI_Jones_photography on Instagram. Kerry has stunning bird photography, wading birds, eagles, songbirds, eastern elk, and more. Check out the Instagram, amazing images. Question is, what platforms, this should be fairly quick, what platforms have you found to be the most successful in selling prints and artwork?
None. No, I think that's one of the advantages to Instagram is because you can hashtag your content and people follow certain hashtags. So if an editor, for instance, is searching for a particular subject, it's just like keywording for your online images for your website. You look up the hashtags and they're pulling up all the images that are out there with that particular hashtag, saves them time and may make a sale for you. So that's one of the advantages there. But again, print sales it's tough to make a living on print sales alone. But you can earn a decent side income, but it's tough to make a living just with that, in my opinion. There's two other opinions here.
Mine's not too different than yours, buddy. And there's some different schools of thoughts about this out there too, right? Maybe this just helps with the thinking process for the question. But do you want to try to move volume with your prints and or gifts and stuff, so you're going to price it a little bit differently, or do you want to go for more of the art type of customer that's going to, you're going to charge $3,000 to $5,000 for a print and only sell large, type prints that are framed and numbered or something like that, right? There's different approaches to take with prints for sure. I would say that probably, and I don't know, from what I've seen and talked to folks, probably most of the people that do super well with prints are ones that are doing more of the art and they're selling the very large, because if you sell a print or two a month with those type of clients, then you can actually make pretty good money. But the other theory is just move lots of stuff and have your stuff available on cups and blankets and, some of that kind of stuff out there too. That's, fairly popular nowadays too. So I don't know. I don't move very many prints, quite honestly. Most prints I sell, people reach out to me from Instagram and want a copy of a print, or I'll just get random purchases on my website that I never even knew were coming. Generally speaking, I probably only get enough print sales to basically pay for the website. It keeps it kind of self-paid and don't have much more beyond that, honestly. And then the direct ones are the ones that one that somebody reaches out directly is probably a little bit more. But it, like Ron said, I don't sell very many prints. So it's kind of a thing of the past, unfortunately. I like to print my own stuff and I like to, be able to see it in my home and I like to print different things, and then I'll try to maybe sell those prints afterwards for a cheaper price to somebody else that might want to enjoy it. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what Mark thinks.
Oh, well, nowadays it's Instagram. And again, print. I do print sales. Same as you, Jason. Sometimes wake up to a surprise order on the website and then drop ship. That is how I deal with it. I have a company in the U.S., a company in Canada, depending on where the client is. And I place that the next day and it's sent to them, because through their website, it's paid up front. But it's a tough one, because prints aren't currently my go-to approach to try and make a living at photography. Galleries are one, if there are ones you have access to that do photography as well as art, by curating a show. There's one I'm planning to do soon on. Just met the gallery owner, so I'm going to, and the area that she's in is on the border of moose country. So I'm going to see about doing a moose show, but not something huge, probably, six or seven metal prints, and just do that and see what happens. On Instagram, those orders come in, or requests, DMs. But that's probably the best way I have found personally to show images for any purpose of revenue generating, aside from direct contacts with editors that I have relationships with. Instagram's the best discovery location, but it's not something that I think people can expect a windfall of prints, unless there's some kind of angle, maybe something exceptional. And like Jason was saying, numbered prints and special situation, and try and do promotions around that. But even then, it's not something I've done personally. So prints they just kind of happen, but not it's not a target as a professional photographer that I personally go after. I've had friends over the years do shows, and I had one photographer I knew did like 40 or 50 shows a year, just traveling with his prints. And it's changed in a sense that you can drop ship now. You don't have to carry as many for display, but that's a whole other experience of marketing and interaction all day long, talking to people, telling stories, and it's its own skill set. And hats off to the people who do that and put in the miles and the legwork, and it can be successful, but it's a whole different lifestyle too. So appreciate the question. Next question is from Sean Sackett, who has cool ermine pictures, wolves, bison, and grizzly bears on his Instagram, which is Sackett with 2 T's, wildlife images, all one word. Sean's question is, this is an interesting spin too. What has been one of your other great experience excluding bears while observing bears? I have such a good one for this. Think about that for a moment.
Can you read that again?
Exactly. What has been one of your other great experiences? And you could spin this on anything. You're out there. He wants to know, when you're photographing bears, something else magical's happened. What's happened? But it could be anything in a sense. You could be out photographing caribou or moose or lions, and something crazy happens. So in this case, it's specific. While you're out on a bear trip, what other cool story has happened? I'll start, because I know this resonates. And for me, it was this November. I was in Churchill photographing polar bears, having a fantastic time with the bears. It was an exceptional year this year. And there were foxes around. There was a wolverine that we didn't see that we were excited about. But what was exciting, their Arctic hare, was the snow white ptarmigan that I got. Because, jokes aside, I had ptarmigan from Alaska. I had ptarmigan from Newfoundland, but they're in fall mid-molt or summer in brown, not pure white. So that, to me, while photographing bears, were the pure white ptarmigan of the northern winter wilderness. Thanks, Sean.
I mean, Jason and I already had that, so
just FYI.
they were Norwegian ptarmigan.
Yeah.
I mean, where bears are where the wild things are, right? So there's so much that happens. I mean, Mark and we talked about this recently on a podcast. We were photographing black bears, central Alberta, saw a couple wolves. That was cool. Across the river. In Alaska, Lake Clark, Alaska, we'd seen wolf tracks up and down the beach almost every day. And then finally photographing this bear, this young subadult male that just kept closing the distance on us. You know, they're curious and kind of jerks. And so he kept closing the distance on us. And we finally get him relaxed and moving away from us and look up, and this wolf is watching the commotion, is standing on the bank of the river. Those are fun. Photographing bears, same spot in Alaska, and two river otters. You know, we're in a location, we're right on the coast. You'd think you're going to run into sea otters, but two river otters came running down the beach as well. So bears are where the wild things are, and there's always fun stuff that happens when you're in bear country. And I think that's why it draws us.
I actually have a kind of a fun story for this one. That's a good question. And it actually was, I was out looking for bears. I wasn't necessarily photographing bears at the time. And I was in my car driving to a location. I was in Yellowstone National Park. It was in the spring, early spring, so there's still some snow on the ground. So I was still looking for some bison and some bears that are coming out, you know, out of hibernation and getting active. And I'm always hoping to try to capture, you know, the boars as they're coming out, because they're usually some of the first ones that come out, and they're, you know, they start to scavenge pretty heavily. So I was driving around the park, and I had a situation unfold right in front of me, which was, it'll always be burned in my mind. It's one of the closest times I've ever been to a wolf, and had a cow elk that was running down the side of the road in the sage next to me, and coming towards me. So I stopped my car because I was like, oh, I wonder what she's running from. And then I saw this head popping into the sagebrush behind it. And at first I thought it was a coyote. And it quickly dawned on me that it was a wolf. And this wolf was chasing this cow elk, and she ran right in front of my car. And the wolf came right by my door of my car and ran behind me. And I'm scrambling, trying to pull off the side of the road and get my camera out. And ended up getting some shots of this scenario unfold. But it was very long shots. They're not great images. Nothing that's, you know, you're going to sell or anything. But the experience was amazing. And watch this wolf chase this cow down around a pond, and then the cow went through the water. The cow had been attacked and had gotten away. Part of the hind quarter was eaten. You could see that there was some blood and some open wounds. And then I realized very quickly that there was actually a whole pack of wolves chasing this cow, and looked across the pond, and there was 4 more wolves, and they were all trying to coordinate their attack on this cow. And watched this for probably a good half hour. She swam across the pond, got out, ran around the pond. She just kept dodging and ducking. And finally, she came back towards me and ran right by me. And the wolf stopped, you know, because I was out of my car, and the wolf stopped and didn't come very close. And then the other wolves picked her up, and she ran off into the pine trees. And then I lost it and couldn't see anything else. But that whole thing took about a half hour to unfold. And I was literally the only person there. Nobody else showed up. Nobody else was around. And so that was kind of one of those special encounters that happen every now and then, even though I didn't get really any images other than some documentation type stuff that occurred. It was still one of the coolest experiences I've had, just out running around in the wild.
Awesome.
That's a great question. And
yes, thanks, Sean.
Is the best country. Thanks, Sean.
Okay. Next question is from Brant Bennett, 1_foot_shorter. Brant has beautifully captured the Grand Tetons region. Outstanding images and light on his Instagram. So check that out. Brant's question is: how do you decide? How do you determine what lenses to take?
I take them all. Usually I do, actually, but it depends on where you're going. If you're flying, um, you have to limit your kit a little bit more. But for instance, going to Churchill, I didn't anticipate taking any macro shots. So I left that gear at home. I left um, after the first time. The first time I did take more of a wide angle lens. Um, and no, that's a lie. Okay. Second time I did too, because part of the reason you go to Churchill is for the Aurora. So I took a fast wide angle lens. Um, but it depends on the subject, expected subject. But if you're going to Alaska, you always want to have a landscape lens because everywhere you look in Alaska is a landscape image waiting to happen almost. But we had Drew Hamilton on the first time a long time ago on the old podcast. And Drew introduced me to the wide world of stitching images. And so I take a lot of landscape images that are stitched panos and put them together after the fact because Lightroom, Photoshop do a great job of stitching those images together, and I don't have to do it manually, so it's not a long process. So that's how I've kind of gotten to where my 70 to 200 typically is my landscape lens now, rather than having a true wide angle. But I always take 70 to 200. I usually take 200 to 400. It has a teleconverter built in, and that's pretty much my kit. I have a 600 f4, but I don't always take it with me. It's a lot larger and heavier, so it just depends on if I'm in my vehicle, it's no problem. You just throw it in, but it kind of depends on the travel arrangements and if there's weight limits and that kind of thing for me.
Thanks for the question, Brent. It depends on the trip again, and I don't have a lot of gear that I wouldn't carry. I don't leave stuff behind very often. There's a couple of lenses, a 70 to 2 and a 1 to 4, depending on the situation, that I don't usually take on bigger wildlife trips. If I'm on a canoe trip, the 1 to 4 is smaller and makes for a great fanny pack accessible or camera case that I can just carry and not have on my back, because on my back is my food barrel or my dry bag. So it depends on the trip. For flying to wildlife trips, I love my 800 for distance images when that's required, or smaller subjects. But my 180 to 600 millimeter is probably my most common lens. If I'm going to go on a big hike for sheep or for barren ground caribou or something, that's all I carry, because I have enough, going to cover a lot of miles in a day, and have a couple of layers of clothes, rain gear, and snacks and water. So I will only take one camera body and that zoom lens on the hike. But when I'm traveling, I try to take the big telephoto plus the zoom lens myself. And the wide angle stuff is honestly, I've had it, I've used it, but not very often. Even in Alaska with a zoom, the 100 to 400. I mean, there's so many landscapes that can be captured with that, and it's also not my forte. Right, I like to capture the landscape, but with an animal in it, ideally, or somebody hiking in the group or something. But I can do that with the telephoto zoom, or the smartphone to document it now too.
Glad you threw that in there, because I was thinking about that as well. Your cell phone is
We can shoot it in RAW.
Jason obviously would disagree, because it's not the best camera. That's whatever.
Right.
The new generations, you just it's funny how it doesn't remember, at least mine doesn't. Every time I turn on the camera, I have to touch the RAW so it switches to RAW. But that's a much bigger file, and you can do a lot with a RAW file on a smartphone. I'm not saying it's replacing nose by no means, but it's for documenting shots. Yeah. And I mean, again, we publish 2-page spreads. We publish magazine covers off of smartphones, no problem. But it doesn't pull wildlife in like we need with our telephotos.
Yeah, maybe I'll just approach it because they already touched on the whole, I'm going last, and so they're always answering all the good stuff. But maybe the approach I'll take is the thought process, right? I think the way I approach any trip is what's the conditions I'm going to be in, what kind of distance am I going to be from the animals, and what kind of images am I trying to capture. And I think with those questions in mind, you can come down to a 3-lens kit, pretty easily. I generally try to take 2 bodies and 3 lenses, and I think you just want to try to cover the range of the the coverage that you might need. For example, a 70 to 200 and your 400 with a 1.4, and maybe you throw in a wide angle for landscape, like Ron mentioned. There's a 3-kit lens that you can pretty much pack anywhere you want to go. So I think that, to me, that's the approach. It's more about the approach, and because it does depend. It very much depends on where you're going and what you're photographing. But maybe that's just a way to think about it, right? What's the range you want to cover? What kind of shots do you want to get? So use the example really quick. My kit for Alaska bears was the 400 with the 1.4 and the 70 to 200. And I did take a wide angle, but I never used it. And Harlan, who went with us, took his 800 millimeter and a 1 to 500, I think, was what he had. And we joked and laughed about, we talked about this on the podcast before, but we joked and laughed about how that's just crazy. But then when you saw the images he got, it was quite incredible because he had a very specific type of image in mind that he wanted to capture. And that 800 tight on those bears with the fish in their mouth was what he was looking for. And they turned out very incredible, right? So I think, again, ask yourself, what are the kind of images you're trying to capture? And then how do you cover that range, and try to keep it to 2 to 3 lenses? And you could pretty much take that anywhere.
Hey, Jason, do you always take, this is something I've been meaning to ask you since I've known you. Yeah. Do you always take a Loftus filter with you? Does that...
That's funny.
Does that ever come off the lens?
No, you're too funny. I know I have a flash that's always on my lens. Yeah, and it reaches quite far too. So. I need that fill flash. So.
Light the shadows. Yeah.
Canon built it into his sensor.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's true, actually. Yeah, probably so.
Smart aleck.
R52L. F.
Yeah. Yeah, if only. If only.
Go back to it. That's our 3rd episode we did, which came out 10 months ago, photographing wild brown bears in Alaska. So watch that on YouTube, and it's a great story to hear those perspectives and that experience for sure.
Yeah. Good question.
All right. One more to wrap up for today.
Yeah.
All right. This is from Megan. Her Instagram is she_behind_the_lens, she_behind_the_lens. Megan's from Ontario, and she has spectacular images of shorebirds, deer, foxes, owls, wonderfully colored images on her page. Check it out. Megan's question is, and this is a fun one to finish on, your dream behavior to capture on camera.
Ooh.
There's so many. There's so many.
There are so many. Go ahead.
Because I've had these questions in front of me. You haven't. So I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it. And for me, it's species related. I've always been drawn to wolverines just because of how huge the territories are and how infrequent it is for us to see them. And there are places where time can be spent where the odds are better, but I've only seen a couple in my lifetime and had some interesting encounters with them, but never in a situation that I could collect photographs. And I had a friend get an amazing one time. It's a good story, but I can't tell it. It's his story. But the shot he got is kind of what I'd love to visualize, with a Wolverine landscape, mountainside in the far north, rugged rocky terrain, and the Wolverine just surveying the valley, the mountain valley, on a big rock precipice with its claws, and just looking at the extensive, amazing wilderness that it roams. That would be my dream capture.
I like that. I like that. Before this last summer, I would have said, or 2 summers ago now, I guess. I got to think. When was that? Yeah, it was 2 summers ago, or a year and a half ago. I would have said fishing bears. That was a behavior that I was really wanting to capture. So I've kind of checked that off the list. And it's a tough question. Gosh dang it. I don't know, man. I keep kind of him-hawing back and forth about which one it would be next. Go ahead, Mark. You were going to say something.
I was going to say manifesting the shot for you guys for this fall. Sparring bears.
I was actually thinking about that. That's definitely one that's high on there. But then you kind of, you covered it, man. I don't know that anybody can get any better sparring bears than that. But
it's not. So many people covered it. But like I've said before, it's the experience, right? It's being there and witnessing it and being in the elements with them.
Sure.
I encourage for you guys.
I think the next one I would want to, that would be great. Don't get me wrong. That's high on the list too. But the next one for me, that's probably the dream one, would be large cats in Africa during the hunt, right? In the process or in the act of hunting. I think those are just incredible images when you kind of get a little bit of that sidelight or backlight with the dust flying up and the animal is right at the tail of the cat's right at the tail end of an impala or something. Some incredible images out there. I just think that'd be amazing to witness and to try to capture. So that's what I'm going to go with.
That's awesome. I could feel that, especially after yesterday's podcast. I feel even
right.
More.
It kind of got me thinking.
Today's,
today's.
Yeah, I love it. Today's podcast in Africa. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go Africa too.
Okay.
I guess this could be either Africa or in the Himalayas. It doesn't matter. So either a snow leopard or a cheetah, or a cheater.
Fastest of the species.
That's a Wyoming cheetah, guys. Just so you know.
Only in the hills, in the hill country.
Yeah, right.
So I would like a pan blur cheetah in full sprint, stretched out with catch light in their eye, head perfectly in focus, little motion in the feet, but full Superman, 70 miles an hour. I'm not asking for much, just that.
No. Hey, do you have an idea of what your settings would be for that kind of a shot? I'm sure you've thought about it.
So for an elk, doing a pan blur on an elk, you're 1/50th of a second. If they're running fast, you could be 1/100th. Cheetah, I think you could probably still be at 70 miles an hour. I think you could probably still be at about 1/250th, 1/320th of a second, and still get some motion if you're moving fast enough. And everything has to be perfect. So, running perfectly perpendicular to the camera. That's all I want. And if it happened to be in the Himalayas, I would definitely want, downhill snow leopard. So shooting vertical, jumping off a cliff after a blue sheep, and the pan blur coming down the face of the cliff with catch light.
Oh, yeah. No.
You got to have the catch light.
That was a given, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's no question.
I like it.
That's it.
It's exceptional.
That's all I want.
I'm just soaking that in. That's amazing. I hope you get it. See, that was a fun question, Megan.
On that one, it was good to go last because I had time to think about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I was struggling there with mine for a minute. So,
well, great answers and great question. And thank you, everybody, for participating, sending questions in. Please keep them coming. And please also continue to comment on YouTube. That helps us. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe. Much appreciated. DM us on Instagram at Beyond the Wild Podcast. Check out our website. There's more information there and show notes and links to all of the podcasts that we've had fun producing over the past year. Thank you to our sponsors for helping us to bring this show to you, and for you supporting our sponsors. Always appreciated. Guys, I always love the laughs. To the listeners that sent questions in, thank you for giving us ideas to think about and reflect upon and to share with one another and with you. We have more exciting episodes coming up soon. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned. Take care. And that's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild Podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA.